Well, hello there. You are watching the Press Preview, a first look at what is on the front pages. Time then to see what's making the headlines with the Associate Editor of the Daily Mirror, Kevin Maguire, and the Deputy Comment Editor of the Telegraph, Annabel Denham. Welcome to both of you. So, as ever, we kick off with the front pages, starting with the Eye, which looks ahead to Donald Trump's appearance in court tomorrow, charged with 4 federal offences. As does the Financial Times. Their headline, Trump team seeks to derail an absurd push for a speedy trial before the election. And The Guardian, Trump's court date sets the US on course for an election clash. The Daily Mirror is leading with the Prime Minister blaming striking doctors for rising NHS waiting lists. Similar on the front of the Express, which has Rishi Sunak insisting the offer on the table for the striking medics is final. The election won't be Sunak, says the Metro. Sunak. How do I say that? Sunak. Anyway, reporting hints from Rishi Sunak that there may not be a general election until, wait for it, 2025. Daily Mail leads with Drax power plant accused of using a loophole to avoid paying £639 million back to households. In The Times, the Work and Pensions Secretary Mel Stride tells over 50s to consider jobs they might not otherwise thought of if their finances are stretched, like being a delivery driver or biker. Well, a quick reminder, by scanning the QR code you'll see on screen during the programme, you can check out the front pages of those papers while you listen to our guests. So let's head straight to them and hear from Kevin Maguire and Annabel Denham. Welcome to both of you. So lots of coverage about Trump, not surprising, in court on the day of these papers, on Thursday. The Guardian, first of all, then, Kevin, Trump court date sets the US on course for an election clash. So it does. It could all be colliding, couldn't it?
An absolutely incredible case, this, in the US. And is Trump finally going to be trumped in court tomorrow over basically charges saying he attempted a coup? And as the Guardian pointed out, this is the third time, will be the third appearance as a criminal defendant. The other two being, of course, secret documents, which he seemed to have in his Mar-a-Lago, and also fiddling business figures to hide a payment to Stormy Daniels. But no, this is, sides have been taken politically, but it will now be played out in court. And you read the indictment, 45 pages, and the case against him is pretty astonishing. It looks very strong. And, of course, Mike Pence, his vice president, who was lent on not to certify the result, so they could have the... essentially January the 6th, when there was that insurrection and march on Congress. Well, if it wasn't certified, then he wouldn't have lost and Biden wouldn't have been president. But no, it's absolutely astonishing behaviour by Trump, who just says, right, now it's all untrue, lies, 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 and he's got this constituency that follow it.
Yeah, the constituency, the core, how big are they has always been the question. But what was critical was how Republicans might react to it. Last time Chris Christie came out in the mishandling of documents case, his poll suffered as he comes out. This time Mike Pence has come out talking about the crackpot team of lawyers who surrounded him. So it's very interesting to see what the positioning is of, A, the other candidates for the Republican nomination, and B, the Republican Party as a whole.
That's right. I think they're getting increasingly desperate, really. It's pretty incredible that all of this controversy is swirling around Donald Trump. He's going to appear in a US court tomorrow as a criminal defendant, and yet he still has this substantial lead, around a 37-point lead over his closest rival for the Republican nomination, Ron DeSantis. I don't think that any of the other candidates who have thrown their hats in the ring are polling on more than 6%. Many have less than 1%. They don't seem to be able to touch Donald Trump. And the fact that it's such a crowded field could also go in his favour. I think it's something that we don't fully understand here in Britain, just how passionately Trump's supporters feel about the man. In fact, it's pretty stunning and astounding and flabbergasting to us. But
I suppose the nearest we've got here are probably Jeremy Corbyn supporters, but it's very different circumstances. But they would, he could do no wrong in their eyes. Or say Boris Johnson's apostles, but
he didn't have quite such a zeal.
No. At a course, if you look at Trump, though, he's the trump card of Joe Biden. Now you might get this base that will make you the Republican candidate, but can you win another election, winning over moderates and independents who'll remember what happened in the 4 years of mayhem from 2017 to 2021, culminating in that attempt to ransack Congress, hunt down people who were opposed to Trump, and pretend the election was fraudulent when it wasn't. It's been, was it 50 legal cases every state now? It's all been thrown out, but
Well, let's have a look at the eye. Well, I know you want to pick up and make your thought, but there we are. The Trump conspiracy, crucially, that he is accused of knowingly conspiring to defraud the United States. You know, that's kind of big, isn't it? The FT also has it on the front as well. Trump team seeks to derail the absurd push for a speedy trial before the election. They tried the same with the Miami case as well, didn't they? The Mar-a-Lago mishandling of documents case. Clearly, they want to get it done before the election. He, of course, wants to push everything back. So there is another tussle there, Annabel, as well.
No, that's right. And obviously there's no mention of insurrection or rebellion. And there's a sense, perhaps, that the prosecutors, they are trying to do this quickly. They're trying to get him on charges that they think they'll be able to prove, or at least prove more easily, perhaps get this all signed, sealed, dusted, delivered before the election in 2024. You know, we still don't know what the outcome is going to be. Everybody has their own personal views on what Trump did and didn't do, and the mens rea, and you know, it's one thing to say that he has his doubts, but a very different entirely to allegedly act on those doubts. So at the moment, I think we just don't know what's going to happen. My concern is that American politics now is so divided, it's so divisive, it's so polarised that this alone could lead to more riots, to perhaps more criminal activity like we saw on the 6th of January. But the point I was just going to make, Kevin, was you're absolutely right that many people will view Trump as a demagogue and as somebody who was not fit to be the leader of the free world. But you also need to accept that in the 3 years up until the pandemic, living standards for many people in America did improve. If you look at his record on the economy, Trump the man is not something that many people could throw their weight behind, but Trumponomics, increase in GDP of 2.5% compared to 2.3%.
He spent a lot, didn't he, to do
Obama.
that? He primed it and debt soared. It's almost as if the Democrats spend and debt goes up. Then that's bad. If Trump did it, it went up. We know why he did it, because he primed it up. But he's claiming, as the eye pick up, he's been persecuted like the 1930s Nazi Germany. Well, look, the moment you make
that's what he says.
Yeah, the moment you make that argument, you've lost, because, of course, he must have no grasp of history. He's got no grasp of the truth.
But he says he's been persecuted, and the Department of Justice, the DOJ, is being weaponised, and that bit does have resonance with
But if somebody who's being dictatorial in this, who is the authoritarian nationalist, who is behaving fascistically, it isn't Biden. It isn't the current government. You'd say it was Trump himself, who just thought he could do whatever he liked, and he wanted to push aside the Constitution, as happened in Germany in the 1930s, although it was with referendums that Germans very foolishly voted for.
Well, this is deeply big in terms of the undermining of democracy, and the undermining of democracy in the biggest part of the Western world, effectively. Yep. He did it before the election in the suggestion of, there's going to be voter fraud, and then we saw what happened in the build-up to January the 6th and January the 6th, right to state level, trying to get fake electors and accuse them of, having more dead people on the books, etc., etc. But the big issue is what this does for democracy, in the global world. So we will watch and wait and certainly see what happens on that. There were the Guardian as well. Trump court date sets the US on course for an election clash. Anyway, talking of elections, let's head to the Metro. The election won't be soon. Sunak.
I think it looks better in print as a headline than it does spoken, expressed. But it was quite clear, and I think it has been clear for some time anyway, but the Prime Minister emphasises he'll go as long as he can, and he can legally hold off a general election until January 2025.
Yeah, why is that? That'd be a month after. That'd be 5 years and 1 month.
Because Parliament's are 5 years. So
it's when the Parliament kicks in, so rather than when the election was.
So that would be December 24 that this Parliament would have to be wrapped up, and then you could go for election. I don't think you'll go then. I think it'll be in the autumn.
January, that's not a good month for an election.
No, it'll be hanging over Christmas. But also, if you're a Conservative Party with far fewer members than Labour, you haven't really got anyone to knock on doors. Well, what you want is Labour not to have its much bigger force knocking on doors. But
it did work for them in December 2019.
It in December did, yeah. Yes. But he wants to go a 5-year parliament. That was
go run it into January 25.
Yeah, because it worked for the Conservatives in 1992 when John Major, the election had been 87, went to 92, the full 5 years, switched from Thatcher to Major in 1990. In the 5 years, something turned up and they won. But it didn't work for Labour when they went to full 5 years in 79. Didn't work for Labour going to full 5 years in 2010, and it didn't work for the Tories going the full 5 years in 97. So the odds are against him. Because if you think of in the last 40 or so years, where parliaments have gone to 5 years, and governments are hanging on, they're behind, they're hoping something will turn on. It's only worked once.
You election anoraks are amazing. How do you remember all this stuff? You're like John Craig, he just raps, every by-election there's ever been.
Like John Craig, I'm suing. I'm suing. You'll be hearing from my lawyers in the morning.
Annabel, sorry, you wanted to come.
No, I was talking more about winter elections rather than going the full term. And prior to 2019, I think the most recent winter election had been in 1923. Stanley Baldwin went to the polls because he wanted a 2019. I think a lot of people assume that the weather means that voters won't go out and get to the polling station. I'm not sure there's actually any hard evidence for that. I think they tend to get to the polls if it's very close or if there is very clear water between the two parties, which of course you had in December 2019.
I think the impact was people are less likely to open their doors if you're canvassing in the dark at say 7 o'clock at the winter than if you do it when it's daylight. But that will hurt Labour more than the Conservatives because Labour's got more people.
But you do have to wonder what Rishi Sunak is hoping will happen between now and January 2025.
Well, let's talk about waiting lists then, shall we, in the NHS? Some improvement in that. Suggestion on the front of your paper that the strikes are to blame for waiting lists. He certainly said we were making improvements until the strikes hit. That's what he was saying in this LBC interview this morning.
Yeah, but of course what he's deflecting is the huge increase before COVID. I think the rough figures are inherited 2 million from Labour, then it went up to 4. Did shoot up COVID, it's now 7.47 million, a record.
Yeah, he said 7.9. Anyway,
I don't, maybe
unless he knows more figures than we do, but anyway.
And the fact is, if you have strikers, we have nurses, we've had junior doctors, we've got consultants, they're ongoing. Of course, that will impact the waiting list figure because appointments won't be carried out, operations will be cancelled.
Hundreds of thousands.
But he can't just blame nurses, junior doctors and consultants because he's party to the negotiations. He's got to take some responsibility for that. You can't just say it's them. It's also you, because it always takes two to tango in an industrial dispute.
But I think it's also the suggestion that it would be a functional system were it not for the strikes. Actually, what Sunak needs to do is have a long, hard look at the NHS and what's working and what isn't and how it can be reformed.
It's a big project, isn't it? Big job ahead. Anyway, lots more to come, including a cabinet minister suggests those over 50 should consider jobs usually targeted at younger people to have a greater quality of life, such as this one. Back in a moment. Welcome back. You are watching the press preview. With me once again, the associate editor of the Daily Mirror, Kevin Maguire, and the deputy comment editor at the Telegraph. Apologies, Annabel. Annabel Denham is here. Welcome back to both of you. Annabel, let's go to the Times. The continuing efforts of the Work and Pensions Secretary to get older workers back to work, including doing what?
Well, so many wizard wheezes coming from Mel Stride just this week. But today we're reading, he's done an interview with the Times, and he says the over 50s should consider delivering takeaways and other flexible jobs that would traditionally be for younger people. He's trying to help plug the 1 million or so vacancies that we have in our labour market, which is obviously driving up cost of businesses, and that's feeding through into higher prices. We had a warning from the chief of Sainsbury's earlier this week that supermarket workers, those involved in the food chain, ought to be added to the shortage occupation list and able to get skilled worker visas more easily to come here and plug those skills gaps. So, you know, I think pretty sort of, you know, desperate times and desperate measures here. You know, what I would say is work, we know, is generally good for people. It's good, especially for older people, to stay in the workplace. It's why things like self-employment are so good. It helps older workers off-ramp perhaps more gently rather than going from a stressful full-time job straight into retirement. It's obviously good for businesses to have, you know, take on more workers, more employees. And I think, you know, hopefully it will push back at some of the ageism that I feel. That
But the problem is you can't blame Brexit, or if you're Mel Stride, you can't blame Brexit, and you can't also say, well, let's bring in more migrants to fill the gaps, because that's also a big no-no, politically speaking, isn't it? Just quickly, Kevin.
No, he's got to ignore Brexit, and net migration is a record 600,000
So it's got to be
plus.
domestically found
Yeah,
workers.
well, maybe this will be pretty good for Tory MPs when they lose their seats at the next election. They can all get jobs with Uber Eats and Deliveroo. Yeah, there we are. Your curry brought by a defeated Tory MP. Anyway.
Oh, we've got 1 minute left. Kevin, I'm going to give you the choice. Do you want that hunts, as in horse hunts, are being banned from making card payments, or do you want the free cake row?
No, Cake Gate. Defo. This is a baker, Rebecca Severs of Three Little Birds Bakery in Keighley, said she had an email of a company acting on behalf of Catherine Tills, who used to be in Corrie, asking if she could make a big cake, a little cake and 100 cupcakes. Didn't mention paying for them, so she read that email and took the clear inference that the cakes were going to be exchanged for some social media plugs by Tilsley. That's how it looked to me as I read it. Now, of course, Tilsley and the company both say that wasn't the case. That's how I read it. And there was this huge scam, we were just moving away from this, that so-called influencers and celebs never want to pay for anything, a load of freebies. Okay. And then they give you a bit of a plug in return. It's a scam.
Did she get the cakes, though?
No. Oh, okay. No. It's all gone very stale.
Okay. We'll see you both later. Thank you very much indeed. Annabel Denham, Kevin Maguire, thank you.